we did is we decided to go all in on changing the menu on the largest fast food restaurant chain in America. Do you know what that is? There's one restaurant that's bigger than Subway, Starbucks, and McDonald's combined.
I'm here to discuss the future of American kids and also the worldwide kids who are facing the problem of obesity. Welcome to the show, Nora.
Our specialty is transforming the entire food system.
Right.
We actually don't want to exist in 10 years. We want to transform the food system as we know it. We do three things as a nonprofit. We change food policy, we raise awareness, we create a groundswell of political demand and political will and awareness of individuals because we believe that when people come together, they change the future.
Do you visit the public schools in the US? Do you ask them to change their chefs in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Or do you also force them to change only what they are serving to the kids?
We did is we decided to go all in on changing the menu on the largest fast food restaurant chain in America. Do you know what that is? There's one restaurant that's bigger than Subway, Starbucks, and McDonald's combined. U.S. public schools, there are over 90,000 that's just public schools, and there are 20,000 Subways. Working with 500,000 students today, 500,000, that by next year we can reach 1 million students and we can optimize $1 billion of U.S. cafeteria budget.
India's National Commission for Child Protection Rights stopped Bournvita, a product from Cadbury's, to use them as a healthy drink.
Health washing is a major concern and it's really important from a policy perspective. Governments correctly hold those companies accountable and ad agencies and whatnot. Unnecessary deaths happen because of ultra-processed food-related disease in America. As we change policy top down, we change surround sound and raise awareness, and then we change the food system and show what's possible. Actually create a new model and say, this is the model of how our food system should be re-regionalized and work.
What do you start your day with? Broccoli, peppers, Brussels sprouts, leafy greens like spinach, or corn mixture?
No.
Working in New York or working in Los Angeles? Would you ever prefer to come to India, or would you want to keep settled in the US and work here for the kids?
Oh my goodness.
What drink do you have to stay hydrated? An orange juice, red wine, or just water?
Water, 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 water.
I'm here to discuss the future of American kids and also the worldwide kids who are facing the problem of obesity at a time when India has also waged a war against behemoth. Joining me is someone who is not just a young CEO but a mother of two kids. Mother of two kids who is also taking on a similar war of sorts in this country against the people, the companies that manufacture fast foods. Nora LaTorre is a board member. She's an investor who has joined hands with White House and also with California administration. She also happens to be the chairperson of Aspen Institute's of Socrates Scholars Program. Welcome to the show, Nora. What an incredible feeling this is to have you here on this show for two reasons. One, because when I came to the States, one of the reasons for me to be here was to understand the relevance of those people who do things extraordinarily and who also have shown the grit, the determination, and also the willingness to take on the high and mighty in this country as well. I mean, of course, it's people like you who inspire us journalists. We want to have you here to discuss something which is relevant to people like you and me, but also to the kids in Asia, Europe, beyond the US as well, the contours of the landscape where we are talking and sitting. Behind me is, of course, the beautiful landscape and the Plaza Hotel where 25 years ago we had this movie Home Alone. And that brings us the memory of what American kid was, the young innocent kid. Today, I want to understand from you, Nora, what inspired, what prompted you to start EatReal? I want to understand from you, what is the objective behind this and what inspired and prompted this move to start this organization?
Yeah, so EatReal is a leading children's health nonprofit where we believe that every child deserves a healthy, delicious future on a livable planet. And we were actually founded by some of the top doctors in the country who saw how sick kids were getting in America.
Right.
And 5 years ago, I became a co-founder and CEO when I learned about what they were doing, and I said, give me the keys, boys. Like, this needs to be massive, and we need to grow and scale this movement and this work and the real food movement. And we have had incredible growth since then. We've 100x our impact in 5 years, and we're starting to quickly transform the food system as we know it in America.
Right.
And so 3-year-olds, and I have a son who's 3, Nico.
Right.
3-year-olds in America are on track to see 693 fewer sunrises than their parents. That means that 3-year-olds will live 1.9 fewer years than their millennial parents.
Right.
To me, as a mom, this is so unacceptable. And what people don't realize is the biggest driver of that shortened lifespan and health span is actually preventable ultra-processed food-related diseases.
Right. Which is why my next question to you is, if I think about the world of superfoods, the world of GMO foods, where does EatReal stand in this big settings of superfoods and GMO foods? How do you want to take on these companies which sell the superfoods or the GMO food? Because many countries in Africa, including some in the Americas, whether the South or the North America and the Latin America, many countries have stopped the use of GMO foods. I mean, America is still thinking about how to deal with the GMO foods as well, canola oil and so on. I mean, of course, these are mighty big industries as well, and they are led by big corporates. It's very difficult to take on these the high and mighties. So how do you come up with your research? One part of the question, and second, when you come up with the research, how do you deal with the schools, or how do you deal with the institutions where you have to take your program forward with the people?
Yeah, so what our specialty is transforming the entire food system.
Right.
We actually don't want to exist in 10 years. We want to transform the food system as we know it in 10 years so that it works better for children, for our planet, and for our future. And so what we do is we've actually created a model to show what the future of food can look like.
Which is?
So we do 3 things as a nonprofit. We change food policy. We raise awareness. We create a groundswell of political demand and political will and awareness of individuals, because we believe that when people come together, they change the future. And then we change real food access. So we actually reconnect the dots of the food system and help scale things like regenerative organic agriculture, reducing food waste, cutting sugar, etc. And so we do those 3 things: is we change policy top down, we change surround sound and raise awareness, and then we change the food system and show what's possible. Actually create a new model and say, this is the model of how our food system should be re-regionalized and work for the health of children.
So my question to you is, how do you do that? How do you implement it? Do you visit the public schools in the US? Do you ask them to change their chefs in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Or do you also force them to change only what they are serving to the kids?
Yeah, let me explain that. So when we think about how food is the biggest food-related disease and top driver in sickness in America, 98% of Americans are cardiometabolically sick, 67% of kids' calories are ultra-processed calories.
Right.
Then we want to know, well, what is the top lever within the food system? If we're going to change food, then where within food do you tackle? So what we did is we decided to go all in on changing the menu on the largest fast food restaurant chain in America. Do you know what that is?
Subway? McDonald's?
It is. It's Subway. It's Subway in unit locations. It's Subway. There are 20,000 Subways. That was a trick question. I have to turn it back to you. But Subway, there's one restaurant that's bigger than Subway, Starbucks, and McDonald's combined.
Which is?
Our U.S. public school system.
Are you serious?
Yes. Just U.S. public schools, there are over 90,000 that's just public schools, and there are 20,000 Subways. And so schools serve 7 billion meals to over 30 million kids. And so our theory of change is if we can make schools the best restaurant in town, serving nutrient-dense, delicious, culturally relevant, sustainable food, then we're going to change core calories for kids, because in the U.S. it's 30 to 100% of some kids' calories. Some kids eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, especially high, historically underserved communities.
So what you mean to say is that today in this country, in the United States, which happens to be the world's superpower, American schools are the biggest origin of diseases for the kids as well in
What
terms
I'm
of what they
saying
supply?
is that school food is the biggest opportunity to transform the health trajectory of our kids, because so many children here depend on school meals.
But conversely speaking, it also translates to saying that what they do is not they do not follow the right regimen of the kid pediatry, where they should be given a right amount of protein, fat, carbs, and so on. In terms of what they do with the fast food, and like you said, I mean, if it's
Well, we all grew up in school food in America, and I grew up on school food, isn't working for us. So millennials, like I said, are on track to have shorter lifespans than their parents, and our kids are on track to have shorter lifespans than us. Our food system in general has failed us, and it's failing us. And so it's a failed experiment. And so we need to do things differently. And school food historically hasn't been full of nutrients and high enough standards, etc. So that's where EatReal comes in. And what we do is we work with change makers across the country. And we're doing this in red states, blue states, purple states. We're doing this we just launched in Alaska. We're doing this in all throughout California, and 400 schools. We're launching in Washington, Alabama, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Connecticut. We're going throughout the entire country, and we're helping schools become the best restaurant in town.
Right.
And they serve amazing food.
What do they do now?
I mean, like, for example, what EatReal does is I can just say what they do, but what EatReal does is we actually stand next to these heroes and we audit their school food program on top of the national standards, and then we help them create a food action plan, and then they start to reconnect the dots of the food system locally to create this model.
Right.
And so we do things like when we work with them and we look at their food program against 10 science-based standards across nutrition and sustainability. And so we look at how much sugar is in things. American kids eat a bathtub of added sugar a year. So we do things like help the schools swap items so that they cut 34 pounds of sugar per student per year. That's this high. One of our school leaders, Michael from Morgan Hill Unified, pulled in a wagon full of sugar to his school board meeting and showed how much sugar he was taking out per student per year. And they do delicious swaps, like instead of super flavored sugary yogurt, going to regular yogurt with local organic cut fruit, or reducing frequency of orange juice, or things like that, and just cutting the amount of sugar in a muffin and adding in fresh fruit. So there are ways to make these simple changes that are huge upgrades in terms of nutrition, localness, and sustainability. So we look at the sugar, the protein. They went from, like, they source more chickpea products. They're sourcing grass-fed organic proteins from local ranchers and farmers. They're sourcing beautiful salad bars with a rainbow assortment of vegetables. They're doing cool things like lentil Thai basil burgers and cauliflower tiki masala. It's so delicious. I seriously text our school leaders around the country and I ask them what's cooking today. And I wish I could. Usually I ask them, like, is there any way I can get that Uber Eats to my house? Like, it's so good. Actually, one of our schools just catered a wedding for someone because their food is that good.
Right.
So, and now they're starting to do community pickups. Like, schools are where parents can get like night and weekend meals, or serving the school board meals. Like, schools can become, because they're the largest restaurant chain, they are these critical food access hubs. Yeah. And we can reimagine them as the nutrition security champions in our country.
Correct. Now, I mean, of course, you've talked about a change maker that you have been. You have altered the way that the kitchens serve food to these young kids. Next question is the fact that, I mean, of course, all of us battled a pandemic. 3 years of pandemic was a hell of a journey for us to be transformed. Most of us became very magnanimous, appreciative of the fact that how lives do matter, and the comorbidities, which we were not aware of, which turned very dangerous for some of us in the United States, in Asian countries, and Middle East, and even, of course, East Asian countries where it originated from, like China. People became very aware of the fact that comorbidities is something which they really can't take very lightly.
Yes.
I believe that US, of course, like other countries, every country went through a terrible time during COVID. And then comorbidities led to many innocent deaths. Do you think that obesity, diabetes, wrong food habits was also one of the reasons? Because I saw your TED address where you mentioned and you buttressed the claim by sourcing and attributing certain facts and figures that how obesity, how bad habits also compounded the problems for the young kids who were facing COVID and they died eventually, unfortunately.
Yes.
So-
A lot of unnecessary deaths happen because of ultra-processed food-related disease in America. We need to just say that and admit that, and then figure out how do we change that going forward so we can pandemic-proof our country, have more of a healthy underlying population so we can be resilient against a future pandemic.
Right.
Interestingly, with our chief science officer, Dr. Robert Lustig, who's a renowned pediatrician, he and I wrote a public health alert at the beginning of COVID calling for more attention on the power of nutrition to create more resiliency. We actually analyzed New York City deaths, which is one of the first cities and the hardest hit. And so we found that when we analyze it, 80% early days within COVID of deaths had at least one ultra-processed food comorbidity.
Right.
And so we know that of course I'm a nerd, so I think I love nerding out on these things, and I was very proud of this public health alert. But we talk about how it's really critical that we have healthy metabolic health so that our immune systems are functioning correctly, and so that then they can have the correct response to fight disease. And it actually a more regulated immune system can reduce the severity, hospitalization, and death risk of COVID.
Yeah. Now, of course, taking on the schools is one thing, but taking on or partnering with Fortune 500 companies is also another initiative. That's two sides of the spectrum. If I look at broadly what your organization is doing, EatReal can't just be alone using the schools as a way or means to educate and sensitize the kids.
Right.
You, of course, are partnering with Fortune 500 companies. What is it to convince a businessman or an entrepreneur or a rich man to follow certain habits and also encourage them to partner with you in terms of whether it is terms of funding or the approach that you need in terms of access or in terms of the reach they have? So what is it like to partner with the Fortune 500 company, since you have mentioned that in your biography as well?
It's going to take all of us, this problem, and it's an all hands on deck moment, and we have to come together. And so we believe in working with everyone. That's individual parents, doctors, influencers, politicians, and with companies. And it's critical that we come together. And actually, we just made a very bold goal to the White House that we are on track to reach. We're working with 500,000 students today, 500,000, that by next year we can reach 1 million students, and we can optimize $1 billion of U.S. cafeteria budgets.
Right.
And to do that, we need to find 100 philanthropists who can help fund $20 million so that we can optimize $1 billion of U.S. cafeteria budgets.
Right.
So that is going to take a myriad of supporters, from government grants to corporate philanthropy to individuals to community donors who are giving $5 a month or $1 a month, So it's going to take us all coming together and funding.
So my question to you is, sorry to pause you here, that have you been able to generate some sort of a groundswell of funds already for these initiatives for developing community kitchens or for developing kitchens?
Yeah, it's really exciting.
But is it through the government or the private?
Thankfully.
A combination.
Yeah. So when I started, it was actually, there was hardly any money in the nonprofit, and it was fold, merge the nonprofit, or go big. And so we said, go big. And we were able to diversify our funding, and we have USDA grants to bring actually our program to the South. We have California government grants. We have individual angel donors who really want to solve this top problem of the world. And by the way, food helps fix health, climate, economy, and national security. So we have philanthropists that want that food solution that has all of these benefits. And then we have more and more corporations that are raising their hand to say they want to be corporate. They want to do corporate responsibility. And so it's really the individuals in these companies that care deeply that have said. So we have Vitamix Foundation, that's amazing, that's supporting us. We have Patagonia that's backing us. Primal Kitchen, their co-founder is also a mom, and I trade notes about being CEOs and moms, and they just donated $1 million to help us launch around the country. So we're having more and more corporate partners that are coming together and Really's grocery store and some other really exciting companies that want to walk the talk and live their values with their partnerships like us, and they're coming forward to back us. So it's exciting that we can start to build a coalition.
Nore, the fact today in the US is that whenever I have traveled in the US over the last 10 or 15 years, either on the West Coast because of my work or the interviews with the global CEOs, working with different companies, one of the concerns that they always mention at times is fast food and sugar is one thing. But I want to ask you today a very, very pertinent question in case you want to address this concern. The recreational use of cannabis, pot, was legalized in the states, in many states of the USA. In fact, 2014 Rohrabacher IV Amendment prohibited federal prosecution of individuals. Now, do you think that the use of cannabis, pot, grass should be encouraged, or if we look at the deficiencies of the nutrients in kids, on the other side, we also have kids who want to smoke up in the US, and there are legalized shops as well. Do you think that this debate also sort of hinges on the fact that Americans today feel more economically powered to lead their life, and the court rulings have suggested that it is not the job of the prosecution agencies if they are taking in a moderate quantity, cannabis, pot, or weed, or whatever?
So we don't take a formal position on this. We really focus on food and the power of real food as medicines.
Right.
And so that's ultimately what we focus on. I will say that children's brains and their neural sheaths and are still developing into their 20s.
Right.
So it's a very fragile time for them to have a lot of chemical exposure, whatever that is. And so it's really important that we as a society think about how do we improve mental health of our kids through natural pathways. So I don't know if you know this, but 95% of our serotonin, the happiness hormone, is made in our guts. And so what we feed our guts can feed our happiness and feed our children's happiness.
Right.
And we do have a terrible youth mental health crisis. And so we need to find ways to nourish our children and nourish their minds and do everything we can to exhaust the pathways that we have to support their mental well-being and their mental health and their physical health and reduce pain, etc., through those preventative ways before we resort. Generally, our report is before you resort to other medicine, whether that's cannabis or drugs, etc., or prescribed at the office or at the dispensary, the medical office or the dispensary. And so we think it's just critical that we think about those core things that we can do for our kids to set them up for success. That's real food. That's limiting ultra-processed food and sugar and feeding the good bacteria in their guts and the happiness serotonin. That's making sure they get an adequate sleep, blackout blinds for kids. That's giving them social connection and that quality time without screens, reducing screen time. That is about reducing their stress. And if we can do that, then we won't have to worry about these other questions quite as much because we'll have more of a healthy base, the population of children.
No, of course, I'm going to take you to a very strong question on which concerns many of the young actresses, females in India. I want you to take a note of it and then let me know how you take on such subjects as well, being someone who has been catering this industry for so long now. In 2018-19, there was a death, unfortunate, of an Indian actress who was a superstar of the 80s, 90s and 2000s. This lady, Nora, died in Dubai in a bathtub. When I interviewed her husband, who happens to be a dear friend as well, Mr. Boni Kapoor, and the actress is Sridevi. The lady dominated Indian cinemas for 3.5 decades and was one of the wealthiest actresses, the divas, which India produced in the Bollywood cinema, which is one of the finest cinema of our country. In the interview, 4 years after her death, her husband tells me in what happens to be one of the most sensational claims, he says that lack of salt in her diet, not just a crash diet, a persistent lack of salt in her diet often led to blacking out and was one of the possible reasons why she died in a bathtub while she was taking a shower. They were attending a wedding together in Dubai. There were accusations on the filmmaker, which he was subjected to, that he led to some sort of a suicide or abetment to suicide charges. However, he, in an interview, tells me the fact that salt, inadequate salt, was one of the reasons why the blacking out took place. Now, I want to understand from you, on one hand, we have so much of sugar
Right.
in our foods. On one hand, you are advocating for cut down of sugar foods and use of lentils and cauliflower right from the farm, which is called farm to fork. This side is altogether different. Here, people want to be anorexic so much that they want to cut down the food, not just cut down the sugar, but also cut down salt and cut down everything which can add fat to their cheeks, and their cheekbones go missing.
Yeah.
So, do you think that a person anorexia is also some sort of a disease which needs to be taken care of, or so much of extraordinary awareness in our lives to stay away from sweets, desserts, leads to this sort of a fear in our minds that we put on weight, we would lose the glory and the glorified years which we have lived with the slim looks after her death, because this was one of the most unfortunate incidents that India saw.
Tragic. Her death is a true tragedy, and so many girls struggle with anorexia, bulimia, and other issues. And this is something we're really sensitive about. And so, and it's just a tragedy. I think for me, as a female and as a mom and someone who was a young girl, and every girl faces body image issues, So I think about, how do we focus on how do we become fully alive? How do we nourish ourselves so that we have the nutrients that we need, the energy that we need, so that we can really fuel our dreams? And how can food fuel your dreams? And when you focus on it from that perspective, then you're not eating too little, and you're not eating so much that you're lethargic and you don't have.
So you shouldn't be frugal either.
Right. And that's why the power of real food is so simple. When you eat real food, you do feel full, and you feel vibrant, and you feel more alive. Actually, for my birthday one year, which you might be thinking you do not have fun birthdays, but we did I've done a 7-day sugar challenge, which is life changing. You just remove any added or free sugar, no alcohol, no juice, nothing that has sugar on the label, etc. But we did it as a family for a month, and everyone felt incredible afterwards. And so it was not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It was about finding other foods, like finding the deliciousness of blueberries. Like, if you give away sugar, a blueberry never tastes so sweet. And then you're finding these other foods that make you feel alive and that are giving you an abundant experience of food.
Absolutely. One of my last questions is, recently in India, and then it sort of triggered a very huge war. The India's National Commission for Child Protection Rights, stopped Bournvita, a product from Cadbury's, to use them as a healthy drink. They removed the label. They said they should be off the shelves where it is called a healthy drink. Why? Because this label, they said, is a misnomer. After all, it contains
there are a lot of health.
Hell lot of sugar. And when they found the excessive sugar inside it, they said, to hell with your company coming and selling chocolates in our country, bringing us rich taxes, albeit.
Yeah.
But there was a growing consensus in India by the parents, by the nutritionists, by the dietitians, that such brands, such labels should be stopped. After all, they are putting several innocent, gullible women, mothers, infants, and young kids, their lives at risk.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, do you believe, or do you reckon at the moment that the air industry which makes these catchphrases, or is it the brands that make these catchphrases, need to be put under tight control, because they're misleading ads with a woman by saying that these are healthy drinks when they are not actually?
health washing is a major concern, and it's really important from a policy perspective that governments correctly hold those companies accountable, and ad agencies and whatnot. There is so much marketing dollar, like there's so much spend that goes into marketing budgets to make certain foods that are highly addictive. You know, they're calling some of these sugary foods the new smoking, and you don't give your kids cigarettes, so don't give your kids these foods that make them, you know, they're trying to make them more and more appealing. And so to actually have effective regulation that that protects our children, and you're seeing it starting to happen in countries throughout the world. In the UK just introduced new legislation, in Mexico, and you're starting to see front of pack labeling, more honest labeling. That's one of the policy changes.
And India, of course, took on the Bournvita as well, Cadbury.
Yeah. And so I think people also just, how do we boost in addition to policy, how do we just raise awareness, like having these conversations that we're having right now? So thank you about this, because people don't know that really kids should have less than 25 grams of sugar, ideally less than 12 grams of added sugar a day. 2-year-olds should have 0 added sugar. And that as a pregnant person, you need to be very careful about how much sugar you have and what you're feeding your unborn baby. That's when I started my journey. And so I think, how do we raise awareness so people understand and they feel informed so they can make that decision at the shelf? And then how do we make it easier at the shelf or at the market for people to make the right decision and the healthy decision, make it the easy decision? That's really important. And that goes into not only then policy and regulation, but what foods are governments subsidizing? How are they making them accessible to especially lowest income communities, etc.? And so policy is a huge part of what we do, and actually changing the rules, rewriting rules.
Of course, the fact is, Nora, that the impact of diabetes, the impact of sugar, the impact of bad foods is not just restricted to America alone. Although many of us in the Asian countries always used to identify the obesity problem largely with the McDonald's and Subways and the KFCs and the Starbucks here in the US. But do you feel that the impact is much beyond America as well and the US as well?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we export our food culture and our food products and our food system. And so these problems that we're experiencing in the United States, American health collapse, shorter lifespans, health spans, and happiness spans, with the biggest driver being food, also happening now globally at an alarming rate. And so we know that, actually, I was just pulling the stats, that 1 in 8 will be obese by 2030. That's a billion people.
That's an alarming figure.
And that's not even considering overweight or with some of these other ultra-processed food diseases. So this is a serious global problem. Also, it's estimated that over $4 trillion a year is spent on chronic preventable ultra-processed food-related diseases, etc. But I know that that's a gross estimate. It's much more than that, because but I know that that's an underestimate, because we know that in the United States every year we spend over $4 trillion, on healthcare. 75% of those healthcare dollars, $3 trillion a year, are spent on preventable ultra-processed food disease. So we're already spending over $3 trillion a year, or 12.9% of our GDP, to treat preventable ultra-processed food-related diseases. So if just the U.S. number is over $3 trillion on this, then it can't be that the global number is $4 trillion.
Correct.
So this is a very expensive and increasingly expensive problem that we have to prevent at a global level.
Right.
I will add that that a lot of these estimates aren't fully taking into account how sick our kids are getting. And so we're actually
these estimates you mentioned are part of the government figures, or you attribute them to the research organizations that you work with for your advocacy?
Those are available government data. One thing that we've been working with Stanford on, with some of their amazing students, actually. So I love student research and student projects, and we love empowering those rising stars. And so we've been working with Professor Christopher Gardner and some of his students, and we actually just tracked and showed that, and it'll be coming out soon, so I'm kind of telling you beforehand. But there are multiple preventable diseases that used to just more and more show up in adulthood that are now showing up in childhood.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is in the last 20 years, just since the 2000s, 2 decades, rises in depressive episodes, rises in autism, rises in obesity, a rise in fatty liver disease, a rise in obesity, and the chart is just going up and up and up. And when you see all of these diseases going the wrong direction, it is so alarming. And so we know like type 2 diabetes is up 76% in youth since the pandemic. Almost 50% of 8-year-olds will be obese by the time they're 35. Where girls are hitting puberty earlier, and then they're having irregular periods, which leads to PCOS, infertility, cancers. We're seeing chronic kidney disease, fatty liver disease, which used to be a disease of alcoholism that's now influenced by sugar, and ultra-processed food disease showing up in kids.
Absolutely.
And one of the most shocking things I think people don't know is that they're actually testing Ozempic on 6-year-olds. And so we're going to be giving 6-year-olds drugs that have been not very tested and that are very new. They've actually greenlit them, the American Academy of Pediatrics, for 12-year-olds. And then they're doing surgery for obese patients that are 13. We're just putting our...
So this is like bariatric surgery? Yes. For 12 years old?
13.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So we have a huge problem that is... So we have a serious problem, a children's health epidemic that's preventable. And I think, to me, it's preventable, which means the good news is we can fix it. And we can fix it in our lifetimes, in our children's lifetimes. And I really believe that real food is the cause of our lifetimes.
Right. I mean, one of the interesting questions which I just forgot to ask you earlier was that, Nora, how much staff do you generally have when you work as a CEO? Is it something that your staff is spread across the country, or is it restricted to your own state or in New York?
Thank you so much for asking this. So I think that we're one of the most effective nonprofits that people haven't heard of yet. So I also appreciate this. So what's cool is that we're actually a national organization. Most of our staff is on the West Coast, but what's really interesting is that we're scrappy. So we're building a rocket ship nonprofit, not a big institution. So
are you very thinly stocked?
We're super thinly stocked. Actually, Bezos has this idea of a 2-pizza team, which it would be like, sourdough pizza, et cetera, but lots of veggie, et cetera. But the idea is that you can feed your team with 2 pizzas, that you can keep it small and nimble and responsive and scrappy. So actually, for every staff member that we have, we help transform the food for 52,000 students. So we are super inefficient in how our model works, and we keep our staff supported and resourced.
Do you have?
So actually today we're at about 10.
That's it.
It's almost unbelievable what we're able to do to then be on track to help 1 million students. So we're staying small. We need more resources.
Right.
We can't run quite this thinly, and we do.
But all ton of you travel. All ton of you travel a lot.
We travel quite a bit. So how do we prevent burnout for the team? We definitely need more philanthropic capital so that we can get the team members that we need to scale this. And we now have proof of concepts. And we've done this in 5 states. Now we need to do it in 15. And so it's a big moment for us, but I am really proud of how, even as we scale and grow bigger, and hopefully as more philanthropists understand the power of this, that I want to stay nimble, responsive. I want to be that rocket ship and take the best of, I have a for-profit kind of startup background, take the best of that and the best of the heart-led nonprofit, and blend that together and build a new American institution that is a different kind of nonprofit.
The question which I also got intrigued to ask you was that most of the American habits are also to eat a lot of flesh in their supper or breakfast as well, whether it was bacon, that too with cheese and beef, a lot of poultry items, a lot of seafood as well. Some of these, the flesh that I've talked about is also very rich in fat. Do you believe that the organizations like PETA, which keep originating their content from the US, Europe markets as well, which keep batting for vegetarianism, is that something which concerns you as someone who's waging a war with the schools and to seek these reforms in their lives? Do you think that vegetarianism has something to do with the obesity as well? It should help cut down the obesity, or is it just that it's fine that we have seafood and the flesh in our lives as well.
Well, I think we're not in the change what your family history or your diet is business. We are in the meet people where they are and help them move towards more of a real food model. And that includes if you eat meat, how do you eat grass-fed, organic, pasture-raised, meat from a cow that's had one bad day in its life, that's like lived a happy life? How do you know your fisher person? Like, how do you actually know that the farmer, et cetera, and that it's local and that it's sustainable and that it's drawing down carbon and that it's, beautiful biodiversity on that farm and actually, creating a really powerful health for the environment around it and for the person who's eating it. So more nutrient density, et cetera. And then also only 9% of kids get the daily recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables. We just don't get enough fiber. We don't get enough plants. So we're all about the eat more plants in general. And
less of flesh.
And I mean, to me, it's like people need protein. So eat healthy proteins. And how do you have minimally processed proteins and healthy proteins?
Yeah.
So I think it's whatever your omnivore, carnivore, pescatarian, vegetarian, eat real food whenever you can. And that's why I think it's such a universal approach of whatever your diet preference is, and then know where your food is coming from and make it as nutrient dense, as local, as sustainable, as healthy as possible.
Right.
And delicious. So you want to eat a lot of it.
Absolutely.
And in general, also if people eat more plants, then you eat less of other things too, right? So how do you be just really intentional about it? But we do need people to eat a lot more plants, and that's one of the top planetary solutions out there too. So people need more plants, and for their gut microbiome, et cetera, it's really important.
Right. I'm gonna end this interview with a beautiful rapid fire pointed at you, because of course it's one of our hallmark ways to end the interviews.
Okay, I'm ready.
So your first question: what do you start your day with? Broccoli, peppers, Brussels sprouts, leafy greens like spinach, or corn mixture?
Or kale? No, it's gonna be kale. I live in California. No, which it'll probably be one of those. No, broccoli? No. I mean,
Kale.
Yeah. Or we pick some blueberries. I love blueberries.
What drink do you What drink do you have to stay hydrated? An orange juice, red wine, or just water?
Water.
Still?
Yeah.
Still water?
Oh, still water. Yes.
Yeah. Sparkling? No.
No.
Sipping coffee on the shores of biggest Great Lakes like Minnesota, or running alongside the Hudson River, or maybe any other bridge or water's opposite Statue of Liberty. What excites you?
I'm Minnesotan, so I have to say Great Lakes, but I am also a mountain ultra runner, so I also like the idea of running. Can it be both? Can it be, I'll run from the Hudson to Minnesota, and then I'll dip in the Great Lakes.
5 things that you would serve me if I were to visit your home.
My husband is Peruvian, and my in-laws live with us, and they're Peruvian, and my kids are Peruvian, so we would serve you Peruvian food. You would probably have something spicy. We grow huacatay outside and some really good sauces. We would serve you delicious vegetables and an amazing salad. I'd probably take you to the farmer's market with me and have you meet the organic local farmers that we source from before the meal. And then we'd have an amazing meal with music and laughter and lots of colorful vegetables and local.
No desserts.
We might do, I've been wanting to try a cacao, tofu, avocado mousse. I think it's protein rich, but also sweet and delicious. Yeah. So I've been wanting to try the recipe, so I'd make that for you.
Lovely. Listening to Drake, Bruno Mars, Future, Sabrina Carpenter, or Lady Gaga while you're on the subway, or you're flying to Los Angeles?
So, true confession, I love reggaeton. So on the way here, I was listening to none of them, but I was listening to Rosalia or Karol G, etc. So,
working in New York or working in Los Angeles?
I love New York, but I was also just in LA. I love both. I mean, we have really great cities here. But I went to school in New York, and I find this city so global and so energizing. So I have to pick New York, though LA does have the palm trees and the ocean, but the people here, my godfather told me, Nore, New York is all about the people and the passion, and that's what the city is full of. So I'm picking
one actress that you look like, Jennifer Aniston or Jennifer Lopez?
Oh my goodness. I wish it was J-Lo. Probably more Jennifer Aniston. I don't know. Both are my goals. Like they're incredible.
Right. Last question. Would you ever prefer to come to India, or would you want to keep settled in the US and work here for the kids?
I do want this to become a global movement, and it needs to. And so I love living in the United States. But fun fact, I had a 10-year multi-year visa to India. So I love India, and I've been all over India. And
Oh, you've been to India?
yes, and like maybe Jaipur, Pushkar, some of the I love the South. I definitely want my kids to experience it, and I want to go back, and I would love to work globally as well.
Wonderful. It was wonderful meeting you, Nore LaTorre.
you.
We thank Nora for joining us on this show here in New York. Keep watching me, Rohan Dua, on the New Indian.